Meet your new go-to for a fresh and inclusive approach to health.
Wellness Rebranded is the pod where a dietitian, a personal trainer, and a mental health therapist combine perspectives to help you redesign your relationship with food, fitness, and your feelings.
Whether we're serving up juicy stories, breaking down the latest research, or dropping practical tips, we'll leave you informed, inspired, and ready to take health-promoting action.
We get you because we are you.
We've joined forces because we know that health isn't one-dimensional, and neither are you.
Tune in for real talk that cuts through the wellness and diet culture hype. Stay for the laughs, the insights, and the feel-good vibes. Hey, it's Elizabeth. I want to tell you about a free 3-day challenge I'm hosting called Why Am I Eating This? If you struggle with mindless or emotional eating, or you find yourself wondering why you're eating, even when you know you're not hungry or that the things you're choosing are going to make you feel terrible, this free day 3 challenge is for you. Over the course of 3 days, I'm going to show you the steps to distinguish between physical and emotional hunger. I'm going to show you how you can uncover hidden triggers behind your eating and help you grow your self-awareness so that you can shift deeply rooted eating patterns that no longer serve you and learn to eat with greater intention and care. The challenge is free. It will last for 3 days. You can sign up at the link in the show notes. It kicks off October 14th.
Hey, it's Tara, Elizabeth, and Maria here with Michael Ulloa. Did I say that right?
Nailed it. Yeah, nailed it.
We were just chatting about how challenging it is to pronounce his name, and apparently I nailed it. So Michael is an online personal trainer and performance nutritionist from Scotland. He's got a background in occupational therapy and takes a holistic approach to client care. He ensures that every aspect of a client's life is considered when designing their exercise and nutrition programs. He also speaks, is a podcaster, a fitness writer, and is determined to make the fitness industry a more welcome and supportive environment for those who needed support. So I think it goes without saying that he is completely our vibe, and we are so stoked to have him with us today. Michael,
Yes.
can you give us a little bit of background? Tell us about yourself and how you came to be this, beacon of truth in the fitness industry.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I always love coming on podcasts for chat, so I do really appreciate it. My journey has just been a really slow evolution. I know a lot of people that work in maybe this kind of space within the fitness industry. There's usually like a thing or something that happened that kind of put them down this path, but that wasn't it for me. Like it's just been a real slow evolution of working with brilliant clients, actually reading the research, getting great feedback from friends and other practitioners that I've met. And yeah, I'd say over the last like 4 to 5 years, where I've definitely kind of sat heavily in this space now, I truly feel like I'm making a difference. I don't feel like I'm just adding to the fitness industry noise of telling people they're not working hard enough, or telling them to kind of keep tracking calories, or no pain, no gain, and all this kind of nonsense you see. So yeah, I would like to think that my background in occupational therapy probably feeds into that, into the kind of holistic way that I work with clients. But yeah, I truly feel like I've found a path of a way of I'm actually helping people, and I truly feel like I've got the best job in the world. It's awesome.
We all completely agree with that.
Yeah, totally. So how did you begin to see the harms of diet culture then? Like you said, it was gradual, but was it just like truly a little by little, or did you come across something that really made you think about things differently?
I think it was also just like my own personal practice as well of like training myself. And I definitely sat in the kind of gym bro area of the fitness space when I first started. Like you're told, like, this is how you do personal training and this is how you help people lose weight. Like it's just how you're taught to train. And the years that I spent plugging away, like trying to build muscle, over restricting the food that I was eating, and realizing that years and years of doing that, I wasn't getting any happier or feeling more fulfilled. And then, as I mentioned, I had some really brilliant clients who, yeah, were quite honest about my approach that I was taking and the message I was putting out there on social media. And every time I'd post something, they maybe be like, "Oh, that's not sitting right," or maybe you could frame it like this. And I don't know, when you start to really delve into the research and everything behind it too, you realize that yeah, yeah, so much of the fitness industry is just complete crap. Like it's complete nonsense that isn't helping people. It's keeping people in a loop that keeps the fitness industry profitable rather than truly giving people what they need.
Yeah.
So much information out there, so much good and bad, really bad. So, Michael, in your experience, for example, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about diet culture that you see being promoted on social media? Or how can we avoid also falling for them? How to know what's
Mhm.
nonsense and what's really backed by research?
That's the difficult bit. I'm still trying to fully figure that one out myself as well. I know the message that I'm always championing is just the fact that our body is the worst barometer of how healthy or fit we actually are. And I know there's certainly not enough coaches banging the drum for this. And I create a lot of content around this point, and I get a huge pushback, especially from male coaches, that I'm promoting obesity or I'm lazy, or I don't know. It's just it's complete nonsense. And I'm always there trying to show that kind of health and fitness is represented in our behaviors and not the way that our bodies look. And I think that even if someone has an aesthetic goal, I'm not going to criticize or tell them that they shouldn't have that. But I think if you put at the center of everything that you do, like, right, I can improve everything, kind of fitness, health, mental health, whatever, by focusing on the behaviors and not restricting and trying to look a certain way because the fitness industry says we have to look like that. We're shown magazines like Men's Health or Men's Fitness and the cover model on the front, and it's saying this is what health and fitness has to
Mhm.
look like. We should all be striving for this exact look, and that will be what brings you health. That will bring you happiness, and it's just not the case. So I always just like to kind of slowly peel back the curtain of how much toxicity, eating
Mhm.
disorder rates, steroid use rates, everything that there is behind the scenes in the fitness world that no one's really talking about. I think if we can start exposing that, we can hopefully try and tear it down a little bit.
I have a colleague here who I worked with at a gym briefly like 20 years ago, and I've just kind of followed her journey since then. And she's gorgeous, and she does a photo shoot every year, like at the same time of the year. And for like the 3 months before, it's all her whole feed is what she's eating, what she's drinking, what she's not doing, what she is doing. And then she looks this particular way for the photo shoot, and then the other 9 months of the year, she just kind of looks normal like the rest of us, you know? But the only pictures she posts throughout the year are the ones from the photo shoot. So it perpetuates this idea that she's walking around looking like that when in reality it's not possible.
It's one of those things, the fitness industry, that really weirds me out. I don't know why it's so popular still, but we have a personal trainer will diet down for months. They'll over restrict. They will exercise so much more than needs to be done, in order to get these photos to then advertise to clients that I can help you be healthy when everything that they did to achieve that look was anything but healthy. It does really confuse me. And I made a point of kind of a few years ago now of not ever using my body as an advert. I never post videos or pictures of the way that I look, or sometimes I'll be showing exercises and stuff like that because we want to help people with exercise form. But I think as soon as we start putting our body at the forefront to sell all our services, I think we're just completely putting the emphasis in the place where it shouldn't be.
Yeah, completely agree.
Hmm.
And so isolating. I mean, because really it's a lie. At the end, it's so
Yeah.
isolating when we see all these things and why is it not working for me? And then, or you do them, you follow whatever this person is saying, and you realize you notice no changes. And then,
Hmm.
wow, I probably doing worse than the whole world because it's working for everybody else,
Hmm.
supposedly, and not for me. So it's like a damage not only in your physique and your physical health but also your mental health, and isolating us more and more because then nobody's going to want to talk about what they're struggling because everybody else is doing great and is
Hmm.
working for everybody else.
Yeah, and I think that's what encourages kind of the huge steroid rates that are around at the moment. I think especially amongst men, we kind of see these images now of like Marvel superheroes and fitness models, like they're just getting bigger and bigger and more unachievable. I think people follow these plans. I know that I did. I had the background on my phone when I first started up was like pictures from Men's Health being like, right, if I work hard enough, I will look like that. And looking back now, these people were clearly taking steroids. So
You
people will do
know,
these things for months and months, and then
Mhm.
they get frustrated. So then they go down the route of steroids because things aren't happening fast enough, and it's heartbreaking to see.
it's interesting at the gym. I rarely hear people talk about like, let's take steroids, right? Like nobody's really talking about it. But every man my age that I know is talking about like, oh, I've got low testosterone, so my doctor has me on this thing, which I'm not saying that's not a thing, but normal dudes whose testosterone is very likely fine because the optimal range for testosterone is like huge, are all going to their doctors and taking some sort of like testosterone replacement, which I think is because that they think it will have a steroid like effect on their body, which it probably will. Right. So
Yeah,
I
completely
feel
agree.
like it's rampant, but it's kind of under wraps.
Yeah, completely. I know loads of personal trainers who do use steroids, but they never speak about it, and they still use their bodies as advertisement, saying, if you train with me and do what I tell you, you will look like this. And there's just no way you're going to do it naturally.
Yeah.
Diet culture is so sneaky and subtle. And I think one thing that jumps out at me, I have 3 young adults slash teenagers, however you want to call them at this point. And like, I think we all kind of know really clearly how it shows up for young women, or frankly, even older women, right? Going through menopause. I think we were talking about that on a recent episode. But for boys, it's so much subtler because it's not about getting skinny, it's about bulking up. And I hear the teenage boys coming through my house talking about it. And, I've had some interesting conversations with them. And I don't think people realize that that's still trying to turn your body into something it's not, probably with very unhealthy behaviors. And it's just so frustrating. Like once you see it, I always say, once you see the harms of diet culture, you literally cannot unsee them. They're
Yeah.
just so glaringly obvious, but they're so normalized that they're really not obvious to so many of us. Like until you really expose it, you don't understand how harmful it is.
It's so true, isn't it? You do feel like you've seen the light, and you kind of wonder why no one else is seeing this thing that is so clear. Like I have a son, he is 18 months old, a year and a half old. Like I don't want him to ever feel the way I did about my body when he grows up, like I don't want him to have anything to do with that. So yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about banging this drum. And as I mentioned, the content I create, it's all guys that criticize the content. Some of the stuff I receive is unhinged, and it's always the same image. Usually the people have private accounts, and it's always some guy showing his physique, like topless, abs showing, and it's just really sad. Like I don't know what the answer is to try and fully combat this, but other than just putting out a really positive message and hoping it feeds through. But yeah, it's always the same thing of them thinking like, I'm weak, I'm soy boy, all this kind of stuff that's just awful. That I know why so many people don't put themselves out there to try and challenge the message, because it is brutal. But yeah, I really hope we can shift that somehow.
I have told the girls this before, but I get a lot of that too, right? Like I'm a personal trainer in a larger body, and I won the NSCA Personal Trainer of the Year award this year, which is like, as you know, huge accomplishment.
That's awesome.
And the people that were like the absolute worst about it were like the super fit bodybuilder type trainers. And I'm like, hey, hello. There's more than enough room for all of us here. Although I would argue that you guys probably shouldn't be here. But
Agreed.
like,
Yeah.
come on, man. Like, let me have this and don't be a douche about it.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking to see. It is really heartbreaking to see. Like all of the toxic advice I see coming out from social media are always from people that have society's kind of most desirable bodies, And I think the fact that we're challenging their beliefs and their entire beings, their entire being is wrapped up in trying to look a certain way and have authority by looking a certain way. As soon as someone comes along and says, "Oh, actually, it's kind of nonsense," they take it quite personally and they do lash out. Yeah, that's awesome though. Congratulations. That's a huge achievement.
Thanks.
Yeah, awesome.
Michael, I'll say one of my favorite videos that you've done recently is you're holding like a 30-pound dumbbell up here like you're burping a baby. And I think your caption is like, "Oh, I'm doing functional training today." And then in the next clip, it's you with your son, of course. And I laugh because my son is 4 now, so like I don't hold him like that super often anymore. But when he was little, I remember thinking like, man, my like neck hurts from like holding him like this. And even though like we don't really lift weights like that. It's not like this horrible idea of like thinking about what demands your life has and then making your workout fit those demands.
It's so true. It is so true. I had this the other day. The reason I did that post was because I picked up my son from daycare. He wasn't very well. And as soon as I picked him up, he fell asleep. I was going to ride back on our electric bike with him. So I had this really heavy electric bike that I had to push home and carry my son on his shoulder along with all the stuff we took to nursery. And I was like, God, thank God that I go to the gym, because without all the training I do, this would have sucked. So yeah, it's like true functional fitness, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
We were talking before you came on about, we've followed along with you on Instagram for a while. I think your content is awesome for anyone who
thank you.
wants that anti-diet culture, just much more health promoting message. I highly recommend that they follow you. But we think you're really great at busting myths and doing it in a way that's just super accessible and engaging. And I'm curious, like, what are the top few myths that you feel like are most important to kind of get out the alternative message when it comes to fitness or health?
I always love busting myths, because I think as personal trainers, you'll know, like we spend our whole time telling people like, no, that's not true. Like we spend our whole time busting myths and just trying to
Same as a
undo.
dietitian.
Yeah, we're literally, our job is undoing the damage that society and other coaches have done to the people that we work with. So every time I do these myths, so many of them are around weight loss. And I don't like talking about weight loss because I don't want to just add to the noise of social media. But I think it's really important to stop people going down these kind of really awful routes that usually weight loss takes them. So all the kind of popular ones are usually like, carbs make us fat, like eat carbohydrate and you're going to store body fat. They're kind of doing fasted cardio, and that's going to help you burn fat more efficiently because we're supposed to be in fat burning zone. Not being able to kind of target body fat loss, and like, as I said, like all of these tend to come down to the body fat loss route, which is really frustrating. So it's all about finding a kind of a nice healthy balance of talking about it, which I don't know whether I quite have that balance right yet. But yeah, I love the misconceptions and
Like fat burning
yeah.
foods.
Yeah, like fat burning food.
Oh, nice.
Exactly. Like just yeah. Yeah, if you just knew anything about biochemistry, you just know it's absolutely nonsense. So it's, yeah, like I really love doing the myth busting stuff. It's like, if we're talking from like a content creation point, like it's always quite fun and really engaging because you get lots of comments and stuff on it. And it also gets quite a lot of pushback from people that are quite angry about it. A lot of the diet crowds that get quite defensive, like keto, carnivore, all that lot, they get quite angry.
Because they're not eating any carbs.
Miserable.
That makes me angry.
Yeah, same.
I'm just thinking two things. So one, Michael, you've made me think that many times I think this only happens in the US, the whole look for quick fixes. And always says, here we live in this society when we want things to happen quickly. We want to see the changes fast. And it's not only in your area. I feel like with mental health is the same way. Like if somebody is living with depression or they're showing some symptoms, they want the quick fix. And many times I tell my clients, it takes effort. I mean, this is some lifestyle changes or things that we need to treat that are going to take a while because our bodies are complex and we want long-term solutions for it. Is it the same in Scotland? I mean, now I feel like, oh my goodness, I've been always said it's mostly the US, and no, it's not.
No, I would say that more people follow me in the US than they do in the UK now. So I'd maybe say that my mindset is kind of towards those that consume content in the US anyway. But no, it's just as bad here. Like I would say that we do follow suit with a lot of the things over here in the UK. And yeah, it's really boring trying to sell health promotion, right? It's why I start to create just really stupid videos of trying to have fun with it, because if I do try and put my message across, it's the most boring social media content that no one is ever going to want to consume. So it's why I dress up in stupid costumes or be running on treadmills, or like there's just so many different ways I have to try and make this content exciting, because we're competing with those 6, 10 week, 12 week body transformation posts that just are really, really easy to sell to people. So yeah, I have to play the long game a little bit, which is frustrating. What
a good point. I mean, we have it harder with, scientifically backed information that those people that come out. I was looking at some of your posts, and I had no idea about some stuff you were talking about there, like the coffee enema and all this stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, is this real? And because in the mental health field, I had a friend actually yesterday send me a message about this article that I'm thinking he thought he was sending it to me like to keep me informed as a mental health therapist. And the article was about how to deal with anxiety depending on your zodiac sign. So if you're Aries, your anxiety shows this way. And I'm reading this and I'm like trying to figure out, is he sending me as a joke, hopefully? Or he thought the article was really interesting, and as a mental health therapist, I should be informed. I'm like, what? What is it? And I'm thinking, is this should be illegal? Like, how can you
yeah.
post an article like that and have other people read it? It just blows my mind.
I don't know how these people get away with it, because I know that if I posted something that was slightly questionable, it would be reported and pulled down straight away. But these people can post ridiculous things and get away with it. I'm really lucky now. So I create a lot of content about calling out the kind of nonsense like coffee enemas, drinking aged urine, like all this kind of stuff.
Oh, the
there's
aged urine, yeah.
Yeah, there's like these weird corners of the internet where they promote these things that, because I create videos like this, all the people that follow me send all the nonsense to me now. So it's great. So it
Oh,
becomes
that's
quite,
great.
yeah, it's great. But however, the Instagram algorithm now thinks that I am not right. So I'm just kind of constantly seeing this stuff that's bizarre. I saw someone was using like urine eye drops and all this kind of stuff. And there's parts of the internet, the wellness space, that are just terrifying. And it's all these people that just like to profit off people that are really vulnerable, especially in the US where access to healthcare isn't great. I think people are looking for answers and can't quite find it. So they become really vulnerable to these things that people are pushing, and they just have no issue of flogging utter nonsense to people. And it is really heartbreaking to see. Like, I always try and put a comedic edge on it, because if you go into it a bit serious, no one's going to want to view it. But there is like serious undertones to all this stuff that I don't know how they get away with it and how they create millions of followers without being blocked. I don't get it.
I think that's the irony of it, is that as healthcare professionals, we're all licensed and regulated in some way, right? And we adhere to a code of ethics. Any random anybody can post anything they want on the internet, and they're not regulated at all.
Mhm.
And so the information that they're putting out is often not just total nonsense, but actually harmful.
Mhm.
And it's just super frustrating as a professional to kind of see what gets out there. And then frankly, it's sexier, right? It's more interesting than eat your vegetables and move your body consistently. And so it captures attention. And they're also able to make bold promises and bold claims that, I mean, who doesn't want those things, right? But people just, I don't think, have the information or realize how there's no backing behind those things. That's just somebody making money off of someone else's insecurities or a sexy message or vulnerabilities or, desires. But
I actually had this discussion the other day with quite a big account. I won't name them, because it feels a bit mean to, but they were kind of arguing, why aren't doctors more open to kind of alternative therapies or some kind of communities that use different practices to treat? And it's like, well, they've got a code of ethics, and if they step outside of their realm of expertise or the research base, they will be sued. And we are fighting a losing battle because we have to do things by the book. And it is, the beast is too big with social media, right? Like there's no getting away from that. I think TikTok just took it to a whole new level as well, of just kind of unregulated nonsense being allowed. I just think it's too hard to regulate it now. Like, I don't think there is any going back.
Yeah, but you know what? Now you made me think of something else, Michael. Those
Oh,
people,
no.
those people, when those stuff don't work, at the end, who do they end up seeing, right? Because
Absolutely.
those people that read that article about the zodiac signs and anxiety, at the end, when they have the symptoms of anxiety that are really interfering with their lives, they come to us who cannot, for a reason, we're not sharing that information. Those influencers or whoever is sharing this information, whoever wrote that article about zodiac signs, I can assure you, in their lives, they've never treated somebody with anxiety, not even a dog with anxiety, because otherwise you would never write an article like that. So we're battling with with this thing that is not even tangible sometimes. Is that crazy?
Yeah, they never have to pick up the pieces. And this happens a lot, I see,
Right.
within the kind of alternative cancer therapies folk. This happens a lot. They'll kind of
Yes.
promote this is how I cured myself of cancer. And every time there's other treatment that's going on that is evidence-based that they never speak about because it doesn't help sell their services. And it is infuriating, but they'll never be held to account. They'll never be held to account.
Never. Yeah.
So
Never,
funny
yeah.
story about that. It's not going to start funny, but it will end funny. So my dad died of cancer like 10 years ago. And at that point in his treatment, I warned you it didn't start funny. But at that point in his treatment, there was nothing else that he could do. And of course, people came out of the woodwork saying, try my thing, try this, try this. And one of his cousins convinced him to buy these like shakes, whatever. So he bought like thousands of dollars worth of this like protein powder essentially. And he had me look at the ingredients and I was like, it's just vitamins. Like there's nothing in here that that's going to hurt you, but I don't think you need it in these quantities. And so he was like, well, I'm going to try anything, So he took these shakes for about a month and I kid you not, all of his gray hairs in his eyebrows and his head turned back to brown. It was the most bizarre side effect, but spoiler, he still died of cancer. So it didn't work for the intended purpose, but definitely turned his hair back to brown instead of gray. So I have no idea what that's about, but a great example of what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, it just shows vulnerable people are easy to exploit, right? It's
Yep.
yeah, and like what else could that have money gone towards when he didn't have too much longer left with you guys, Like it's heartbreaking.
Yep.
Well, or thinking that explanations for things only have one variable to it, like that everything is cause effect, and nothing is really cause effect. There's so many other things playing a role into what's happening, but it's easier just to. Michael, maybe we should start doing a post on Instagram, and the video should start like, this is the best tip ever. You're going to change your life forever. You've never heard of it. Better than shakes. And then it's like, sleep 7 hours at least. Like at the end, it's like the most simple thing. And we just make it really, which by the way, brings me to something that I read on one of your posts that I really liked. You kind of gave like 3 things that we could be focusing on rather than all this nonsense. And it caught my attention because I agree with all of them. And one was better nutrition education. Like, what about we educate ourselves, read more, be more critical thinkers of what we see out there. Number 2, obviously ignore unqualified influencers talking all this nonsense. Really, where is your information coming from? Who is this person? Based on what? And the third one is prioritize our mental health, which goes hand to hand and is affected too when we don't ignore these unqualified influencers and we don't get better nutrition education. It's a whole play of influence in each other. So I love those 3 tips. And, in case some of our listeners don't follow you yet, which they should, they can get those 3 simple tips that I really liked.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's so important. Nutrition education's a really important one. It's why so many people end up turning to Joe Rogan or whichever idiot he's got on his podcast with him. It's quite heartbreaking how many people turn to that, but it needs to start kind of right from a very young age, right? I have a lot of people come to me saying like, how do I know who to follow on social media? And I don't have an answer. Like, it's so difficult to know. There's people who I've followed for years and then they'll post something and I'm like, oh, that's disheartening, and they get an unfollow. So it is so difficult. If you can find someone you trust who is giving you information that usually starts with "it depends," then cling on to them, hold on to them for dear life, because that person probably has your best interests at heart. But there's no promise there, unfortunately.
I actually read something the other day that says like the very best like coaches of, fitness, nutrition, health, whatever, struggle on social media because everything is nuanced and we are kind of loath to take a harsh stance on something. So, the definitive answers are the things that really sell. And I think the four of us in this room are kind of like, well, it could be this, but also this other thing.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
also
just
it's
not that sexy.
individualized and there's nuance, right? Like there's someone that a client actually, I'm not gonna give too many specifics because I don't want to I don't want to point people there, but told me she was reading a book that is relatively new and published by a doctor. And so she was going on and on. So I decided to read it. And it's like on the face of it, clearly written by a very, very smart person. And like part of her message, I totally am on board with. But then in the end, the person, it's like, it's so idealized about what we quote unquote should or shouldn't be eating that it's like not real world advice for the vast majority of people. And it doesn't take into account how many people maybe are struggling with disordered eating or have, already have mental health issues or anxiety, and that's going to feed into it, or there's like no nuance to it. And I think that's what you see in social media a lot as well. It's like, sure, maybe every one of us could tell you what's the like general ideal thing you can do for your mental health or your fitness or your nutrition, but like it doesn't really matter if it doesn't help you as an individual and your unique circumstance, and recognize that yours is different than mine and different than hers and different than theirs. So
yeah, I think it's usually the biggest red flag, especially in the fitness space, is if someone just has one approach that they are plugging. Like that's the biggest red flag. You'll see this a lot with low carb groups, carnivore group. Carnivore still blows my mind how anyone thinks that's a good way to eat, but it's there's so many of these different camps that will be like, this is the best way for everyone to eat, and it's just so easy like just dismiss them because they're talking nonsense. But then you have like the other big people within the fitness or nutrition world at the moment that still have quite big followings that are slowly, people are starting to question them. Like the glucose goddess is still quite popular, but some of the stuff she comes out with is just bizarre. So it is really difficult to know who to turn to.
I feel like we see the same thing in fitness with like, the people that only use a kettlebell to train their clients, or the people that are only using the barbell. Like, man, there's so much benefit to all these things. We don't have to pick just one.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, it was such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. If you could leave our listeners with one thought, what's like the main message you'd love to get across?
Oh, wow. I guess we'll just kind of summarize a bit of that last point that I made there, of just like there being one best way to eat or exercise. I think so many people are put off by fitness or kind of making big changes to their nutrition because they think that everything has to be perfect and we have to find this magic approach that works for us. And it just doesn't exist for anyone. Like the way that I eat would probably be awful for the way that all of you should be eating. The way that I exercise, you guys would probably hate it and not want to stick to it. So genuinely, we all need to find our own path when it comes to exercise and nutrition. And that is the frustrating thing about it, but also the kind of beautiful and fun thing about it as well. So yeah, just try and have some fun with it because it ain't that serious, basically.
Yeah. And where can people find you, Michael?
Mostly on Instagram, a little bit on TikTok, but my handle is the same on every platform. And it's just my name. So Michael Ulloa, PT. And yeah, that's where you'll find all of my advice.
And
Awesome.
we'll drop it on the show notes too.
Yeah, I was
So
just
if you-
going to say it's not spelled like it sounds, so definitely go to the show notes, but I highly encourage you to follow Michael. I've followed you for a long time and I'm a big fan of your content and your message, and thank you for doing the work that you do and helping to rebrand wellness because we need it.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's very kind of you.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure. For you guys listening, don't forget to download the episode, share with friends, leave a like, leave a comment, connect with us for our next episode next week. Thank you, Michael. And the rest of you, have fun. Isn't as serious as it looks, and take care of yourself.
Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with me outside of this podcast, you can find me on Instagram at coaching_therapist.
I'm Elizabeth. You can find me at Elizabeth Harris Nutrition or in my Facebook group, Health and Healing with Intuitive Eating.
And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Tara DeLeon Fitness. Guys, if you loved this episode or any of our other episodes, we would love it if you would leave us a review on Apple Podcast. It really, really helps us get the non-diet word out to the rest of the world. So please leave us a review.
Yes, thank you.